through me tell the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending. The wanderer, harried for years on end after he plundered the stronghold on the proud height of Troy. He saw the townlands and learned the minds of many distant men, and weathered many bitter nights and days in his deep heart at sea, while he fought only to save his life, to bring his shipmates home. But not by will nor valor could he save them, for their own recklessness destroyed them all. Children and fools...
I'm sorry, my timing was all off.
Should we start again?
Hold on a second.
We can do it again.
Yes, I'm still rolling, yes, we can start.
Sing in me, muse, and through me tell the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending. The wanderer, harried... I have undertaken an enormous and very exciting project, namely to make audible and permanently audible the whole of Robert Fitzgerald's translation of Homer's Odyssey. To make it permanently audible, that means to record it, to get it down on tape, to get a performance of it on tape. And it would require 24 12-inch records, and I think it's a 5-year project. Sing in me, muse, and through me tell the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending. The wanderer, harried for years on end after he plundered the stronghold on the proud height of Troy. He saw the townlands and learned the minds of many distant men, and weathered many bitter nights and days in his deep heart at sea, while he fought only to save his life, to bring his shipmates home. I really think that Fitzgerald has created what is, within my experience, I can't speak of the whole gamut of literature, but within my experience, within what I have read and heard, Robert has created the finest single piece of verbal material for the solo performer that exists in the English language. And this is not hyperbole. I don't mean this in I'm not exaggerating my own feeling about this. I think it is a masterpiece. I think it is a masterpiece. I think if Homer could appear on the scene today understanding English perfectly and heard Robert's verse, Homer would say, yes, that man knows what I meant.
Way up yonder above the sky, a jaybird built in a bluebird's eye. Be nimble, Jim, you can't go. Go weave and spin, you can't go. Buckeye Jim.
Almost everyone who spent some time in Greece and writes about it knowingly speaks of a quality of light in the country. That's what I felt I needed to know about. It wasn't that I needed to see specifically the color of the sea so that I would understand what Homer means by the wine-dark sea. It wasn't anything as sort of specific and limited as that. It was just the general feeling of this country.
For me, it's beside the point whether there really was a man named Odysseus and whether he did have a house there. But this tale has a certain reality to me, and now when I have those lines to speak, after me, everyone, rush him where he stands. If we can budge him from the door, if we can pass into the town, we'll call out men to chase him. What is this passing into the town? What men, you know? I see Stavros. I think it's the kind of knowledge, it's the kind of familiarity with the subject that can add to the timbre of the voice minutely subtle things that spell veracity, validity, truth, bone truth to the listener. The listener feels this man knows what he's talking about. There's a scene in Book 1 in the Odyssey in which the description is made in this way. A herald gave a shapely cithern harp to Phemios, whom they compelled to sing. And what a storm he plucked upon the strings for prelude. High and clear the song arose. I don't feel that I have to hold myself strictly to the stringing of the instrument that Homer used. I may use touches of that kind of tonality, but just how to use it, should it be a constant rhythmic line of some sort underlying the voice? Should it be used the way the harpsichord is used, for instance? I started that because this is in the middle of an episode. When I start from the beginning of Book 1 and I get to this point, I'm going to give that little break because the scene changes, you see. But now that God had gone far off among the sunburnt races, most remote of men, etc., etc., haunches of rams and bull 100-fold, he lingered delighted at the banquet side. In the bright hall of Zeus upon Olympus, I'm using it as a little, what you might call an oral paragraph. And later on, there's a passage where I'm tempted to really set up a rhythm like this before the voice begins. He drew to his fist the cruel head of an arrow for Antinous, just as the young man leaned to lift his beautiful drinking cup. Embossed, two-handled, golden. The cup was in his fingers. The wine was even at his lips, that kind of thing, and nothing.
Par vos rayons d'argent et rêver que je lui pardonne. Bonsoir, Madame la Lune, bonsoir.
It was hearing that man in the summer of 1935 that really set my course for me.
hier est un rêve.
I had the feeling for the first time, really for the first time in my life, that's what I want to do. That's lovely. You notice how he makes you wait. You know, you've heard 3 verses now. You know, one has listened to 3 verses. One knows that that quite rhythmic chorus comes at the end, but he delays it. He makes you wait until you feel, you know, you're just leaning forward, waiting for that rhythmic thing. Then finally, there it is. Little master touch, you know, the kind of thing. There's no way of indicating really on a score. You could write down, you know, delay a little bit before the chorus and the last, but how much, you know, just that, just like a fine, fine actor or a storyteller, you know, who will say, and then, do you know what happened? Cut his head off and kicked it out of the door. You know, that feeling of waiting.
Bonsoir, Madame la Lune. Bonsoir.
He took all kinds of liberties. He did whatever he needed to do with the rhythm and swing of the song. That was one thing I realized immediately, that lovely freedom that he had. Another thing was the directness of the singing. The directness of the singing. It was one did not have the feeling of someone just simply standing there or sitting there and with an attitude almost as though the eyes might just as well be closed, as though they're just putting out into the air a beautiful song. There are occasionally songs that can be sung that way. I've seen Roland Hayes stand on the stage and sing almost as though in a trance and just put that song out into the concert hall. But that's a song in which a tale is not being told, so that it can be done. But with a narrative song, a song in which you are really communicating consciously and openly and overtly, communicating a certain content to a listener, it requires another attitude, and few singers have it. Yolande had it. It was the feeling of this, you know, there was a ship that sailed upon the lowland sea. Greetings, stranger. Welcome to our feast. There will be time to tell your errand later. He led the way, and Pallas Athena followed into the lofty hall. The boy reached up and thrust the spear high on a polished rack against a pillar. I hear my voice dropping a little too low in pitch and losing clarity at the very ends of lines. And in general, I think I must work for a closer to a singing tone through the whole thing. It can have it can have the intonation of speech, but the vocal line should be more a singing tone. Yes. It's possible to get them both, so that the intonation, so it's not, I don't mean like a chant, so that the rise and fall of the voice, is really the speech, a speech melody, but there has to be a greater continuity of sound. If I, for instance, if I do those lines, the boy, I did it a little bit this way. The boy reached up and thrust the spear high on a polished rack.
Yes.
It's got to be, the boy reached up and thrust the spear high on a polished rack against a pillar, where tough spear on spear of the old soldier, his father stood in order. Then, shaking out a splendid coverlet, he seated her on a throne with footrest. So that there's a da-da, 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 more a singing line through it. O Majesty, O Father of us all, that man is in the dust indeed, and justly. So perish all who do what he had done. But my own heart is broken for Odysseus,
the mastermind of war, so long a castaway upon an island in the running sea, a wooded island in the sea's middle, and there's a goddess in the place. The ear should be beguiled by the sheer sound of it. It should sound pleasing and beautiful. It should sound musically meaningful, even to someone who doesn't know the English language, if I do it really well.
Say, man dear, did you never hear of pretty Molly Brannigan? She's gone away and left me, and I'll never be a man again. Not a spot on me hide will the summer sun e'er tan again, since Molly's gone and left me here alone for to die. Oh, the place where me heart was, you could easy roll a turnip in. It's as large as any paving block from Dublin to the Devil's Glen. If she'd rather have another, sure she might have sent mine back again, and not have gone and left me here alone for to die. Oh, well, I remember...
Purok came to hear me, and he heard me under favorable circumstances. He heard me sing to a packed house in Carnegie Hall, 2,780 people. I'd opened the program, I think, with the Ben Jonson, Have You Seen But a White Lily Girl?
Yes.
Very, very delicate. I sang it pianissimo because I knew that in this vast hall and with no amplification at all, I had to get that audience used right from the very beginning, used to the idea of their having to sit absolutely silently without a single rustle of a program or a sneeze or a cough or a foot scrape. And if I couldn't get them to do that, I was lost. So I began with that song and got them used to that, you see. And then by contrast, when I sang a good full-bodied song afterwards, my voice probably sounded quite large. But Hurok liked the song and came backstage to see me immediately and told me, he said, you know, I've heard this kind of thing once before in my life. He said, in 1920 in the town of Riga on the Baltic, a Swedish singer, I don't remember his name. I said, was it Sven Sjölander? And Hurok said, my God, yes. How could you know that? I said, it was Sjölander who started me doing this. He said, no. He said, it must be somebody else. You couldn't. He said, when I saw him in 1920, he was already, felt he was too old to come to America. He wouldn't come. And I said, yes, I know. He was 60. And in 1935, he was 75, and I went to Stockholm to see him. Hurok said, oh, my goodness. So he said, what kind of a career do you want? I said, I want to do just what I'm doing tonight, but all over the country. He said, you want management? And I said, yes. He said, well, come in and see me Monday, we'll talk business.
I'm cool and determined as any salamander man. Won't you come to my wake when I take that long meander, man? Sure, I'll feel myself as valiant as that famous Alexander, man, when I hear you crying round me, Yera, why did you die?
Then spoke Odysseus, all craft and gall. My lords, contenders for the queen, permit me. A passion in me moves me to speak out. Let me try my hand at the smooth bow. Let me test my fingers and my pull to see if any of the old-time kick is there, or if thin fare and roving took it out of me. The swineherd had the horned bow in his hands, moving towards Odysseus, when the crowd in the banquet hall broke into an ugly din, shouts rising from the flushed young men.
I have the feeling now that unconsciously, of course, unknown to myself, I've been preparing all my life for this particular piece of work. No better preparation for it inside our culture, in our times, I think, than the singing of the great traditional songs, which has been my profession. The musical use of the voice while telling a poetic tale.
He drew to his fist the cruel head of an arrow for Antinous, just as the young man leaned to lift his beautiful drinking cup. Embossed, two-handled, the cup was in his fingers. The wine was even at his lips. And did he dream of death? How could he, in that revelry, amid his throng of friends? Who would imagine a single foe, though a strong foe indeed, could dare to bring death's pain on him and darkness on his eyes? Odysseus' arrow hit him under the chin and punched up to the feathers through his throat. Backward and down he went, letting the wine cup fall from his shocked hand. Like pipes his nostrils jetted crimson runnels, a river of mortal red. And one last kick upset his table, knocking the bread and meat to soak in dusty blood. Now as they craned to see their champion where he lay, the suitors jostled in uproar down the hall, everyone on his feet. Wildly they turned and scanned the walls of the long room for arms, but not a shield. Not a good ashen spear was there for a man to take and throw. All they could do was yell in outrage at Odysseus. Foul to shoot at a man! That was your last shot. Your own throat will be slit for this. Our finest lad is down. You killed the best on Ithaca. Buzzards will tear your eyes out. For they imagined as they wished that it was a wild shot, an unintended killing. Fools not to comprehend they were already in the grip of death. But glaring under his brows, Odysseus answered, "You yellow dogs. You thought I'd never make it home from the land of Troy. You took my house to plunder, twisted my maids to serve your beds. You dared bid for my wife while I was still alive. Contempt was all you had for the gods who rule wide heaven, contempt for what men say of you hereafter. Your last hour has come. You die in blood." As they all took this in, sickly green fear pulled at their entrails, and their eyes flickered, looking for some hatch or hideaway from death. They felt their knees fail and their hearts, but heard Eurymachus for the last time rallying them. "Friends," he said, "the man is implacable. Now that he's got his hands on bow and quiver, he'll shoot from the big doorstone there until he kills us to the last man. Fight, I say. Let's remember the joy of it. Swords out, hold up your tables to deflect his arrows. After me, everyone, rush him where he stands. If we can budge him from the door, if we can pass into the town, we'll call out men to chase him. This fellow with his bow will shoot no more." He drew his own sword as he spoke, a broadsword of fine bronze, honed like a razor on either edge. And crying hoarse and loud, he hurled himself at Odysseus. But the kingly man let fly an arrow at that instant, and the quivering feathered butt sprang to the nipple of his breast as the barb stuck in his liver. The bright broadsword clanged down. He lurched and fell aside, pitching across his table. His cup, his bread and meat were spilt and scattered far and wide, and his head slammed on the ground. Revulsion, anguish in his heart. With both feet kicking out, he downed his chair, while the shrouding wave of mist closed on his eyes. She keeps on coaxing him with her beguiling talk to turn his mind from Ithaca. But such desire is in him merely to see the hearth smoke leaping upward from his own island that he longs to die. Are you not moved by this, Lord of Olympus? Had you no pleasure from Odysseus' offerings beside the Argive ships on Troy's wide seaboard? O Zeus, what do you hold against him now?